Good afternoon and welcome. I am Jenna, a visiting fellow at the Sasakawa Peace Foundation, and I will be your host for today's keynote address with the Honorable Feleti Penitala Teo, Prime Minister of Tuvalu, on day 8 of the Pacific Island Nations Weeks. Honorable Prime Minister, please proceed to deliver your address.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Madam MC, and thank you to Sasakawa Peace Foundation for the opportunity to share with you some perspectives on Tuvalu's partnership with Japan during the week of the Palm 10 meeting. I've put together a few slides just to guide my presentation. My presentation will be less formal, it will be more conversational. So I'll just speak to the slides. First of all, I wish to thank the foundation for the opportunity to share with some of you this afternoon some of the challenges and priorities that the Tuvalu government encounter. As you may know, I am relatively new to the political scene in Tuvalu. I was only elected in January when Tuvalu had their general elections. It is my first time to contest election in Tuvalu, and in February, a month later, I was elected as the new Prime Minister of Tuvalu. So the government that I now lead is only 4 and a bit month old. So I am, in terms of forum leaders, I am the new kid on the block. But prior to contesting the election in Tuvalu, I had been a regional bureaucrat for the last 24 years. I originally started my regional career as the Director General of the Foreign Fisheries Agency for 6 years. Then I served not long after that as one of the Deputy Secretary General of the Pacific Island Forum for 6 years and 7 months. And then I had a short stint as the inaugural Secretary General of the Pacific Island Development Forum. And in that capacity, in 2014, I was invited by the foundation to come and make a presentation on the role of the Pacific Island Development Forum relative to other regional organizations. So this is my second opportunity to be invited by the foundation and to share some perspectives this time on Tuvalu's partnership with Japan. That's the outline of my presentations. I'll provide a very quick overview of the political setup in Tuvalu. I will talk to what is now known as the Statement of 21 Priorities. These are the priorities that my administration announced during the inauguration of the new government after elections in January of this year. Then I will spend a little bit of the 15 minutes that I have been given on climate change, which is the top priority in Tuvalu, and will remain the top priority until God knows when. And I will also touch a little bit on the economic challenges that Tuvalu encounters. And then to wrap up my presentations, I will provide some perspective on the Tuvalu-Japan partnership. So in terms of background, I hope most of you know where Tuvalu is on the map. It's a tiny, one of the smallest Pacific Island country. It has a residential population of just over 12,000 people. It has a diaspora of probably the same size, concentrating in Fiji, New Zealand, and Australia, and some other Pacific Island countries. We are a parliamentary democracy. In fact, we are a constitutional monarchy because the King of England is also the King of Tuvalu. His representative on the ground in Tuvalu is what we call the Governor General. And I think in terms of constitutional monarchy in the Pacific, there are four set up. The Solomon, Papua New Guinea, Cook Island, I think Niue, courtesy of New Zealand and Australia, and Tuvalu. They are constitutional monarchy because we share a common monarch who is technically the head of state. In terms of regional engagement, Tuvalu, like other independent members of the Pacific, members of the forum, who last year collectively agreed on the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent. This is the blueprint for the development of the Pacific. The idea is to encourage regional integrations by pooling resources together and maximizing the return of those resources by managing them collectively. It is a difficult task, but it's a task that needs to be addressed. There is also an implementation plan of the 2050 strategy that leaders have recently adopted. And the idea of the implementation plan is to set target timelines and milestones to monitor the performance of the implementation of the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent. In terms of the PALM process that is happening this week, it's a meeting of leaders of the Pacific with the Prime Minister of Japan. This is the 10th summit. Other countries like Korea, China, they also have similar summits where they have their own dedicated opportunity to share their development resources or development goals and plans towards the development of the Pacific as a region. I mentioned a statement of 21 priorities. When the political landscape or system in Tuvalu is not based on political party. Candidates go into elections as individuals. They come out as individuals. So we don't have the luxury of the platform of political parties where they have a political manifesto that they use as their platform for campaign. So what happened after the general election in Tuvalu this year? There were 6 new members of parliament, and I am one of those. So in the negotiations that took place, the 6 new members of parliament were able to consolidate their grouping and negotiate with other members of parliament in order to have the requisite number to form the government. While we were doing the negotiations, in terms of securing the requisite number of MPs to be able to form the government, we worked on a statement of priorities. These are simply priorities, development priorities that were based directly from the experience, observations, and consultations that each of the members of this caucus were able to discern from the community. And as you look at those 21 priorities, there is if you go to the internet, you can download these priorities. There is a more elaborate descriptions of these priorities. But if you look at priority 1 and 2, those are climate change related priorities. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of time this afternoon to allow me to explain each of the priorities. But these priorities are very much linked to our national strategy for sustainable development, which we call in Tuvalu takete, which literally translates to a basket. And that national strategy document a range of development priorities which are linked to the sustainable development goals of the UN. The relationship between these 21 priorities and the national strategy for sustainable development is that those priorities in the national strategies remain current and valid. Most, if not all, of these 21 priorities are integrally linked with those priorities in the national strategy for sustainable development. The difference is that we have elevated these priorities, these 21 priorities, for urgent consideration and implementations. And if you have time to look at those, apart from the climate change-related priorities, we also have the basic development challenges of shipping services, our air services, the need to address the internet connectivities, the needs to expand our revenue generation base. You have waste disposal, tradition and culture, the agency to sustain and manage those culture because they provide our identity. So I will recommend, if you do have time, to download that statement of 21 priorities for Tuvalu. But for this afternoon, I will simply focus my conversation with you on these two major priorities. One is climate change. As all Pacific Island countries have collectively declared that climate change and sea level rise pose the greatest existential threat to the future survivability of Pacific Island countries. In terms of Tuvalu, for those of you that knows the geographical and landscape of Tuvalu, like Kiribati and the Marshall Islands, are totally flat islands. They are merely a meter above sea level, the sea level. So the impact of climate change on sea level rise will have a devastation impact on Tuvalu. It would only take a meter in the increase of sea level rise for Tuvalu to be totally inundated by climate change. The predictions by climate change experts is that by 2050, this is only like less than 30 years to go, Tuvalu, the land territory of Tuvalu will be more than 50% regularly inundated by just regular tidal surges. These are not cyclones, not typhoon, or these are simply regular tidal surges. By 2100, more than 90% of the land territory of Tuvalu will be inundated by tidal surges. So these are very alarming and dooming predictions. But that's what the experts are saying. For Tuvalu, unfortunately, the solution to climate change does not rest within the means of Tuvalu. It needs the collective global response, because the biggest emitters of greenhouse gas that contribute, or the cause of climate change, are done outside the territory of Tuvalu. So the only solution that is within the power of Tuvalu is to make as much noise as we can. And that's why Tuvalu is so vocal in terms of international advocacy to explain why Tuvalu is the most vulnerable of the most vulnerable country in terms of the impact of climate change. I was at the SIDS conference. This is the UN conference on small island developing state issue that was held in Antigua and Barbuda in May. But on my way there, I got to meet for the first time the Secretary General of the UN, who had visited Tuvalu, I think in 2018 or 17. He actually spent a couple of days there. And he stood with his suit in the waters in Tuvalu. And the images of the Secretary General of the UN being submerged up to his knee with his formal business clothing is quite impactful. And I was very glad to have the opportunity to have a brief conversation with him. And the UN Secretary General told me that the plight of small island developing states, especially countries like Tuvalu that do not have any alternative because they are totally flat. For other Pacific Island countries who also claim to be vulnerable to the impact of climate change, at least there is a hill to run to or a higher ground. But Tuvalu, there is no such alternative. So I'm very glad that the top diplomat of the world in the body of the UN Secretary General is committed to fight the fight that small island developing state, especially the most vulnerable countries to the impact of climate change. So one of the flagship project that Tuvalu has started and will continue to pursue is the Tuvalu Coastal Adaptation Project. And this is a land reclamation project that also has a twin purpose of elevating the coastline of Tuvalu so that it will not suffer the fate that is being predicted by the climate change scientists. We are grateful for the generosity of some of the development partners through the Global Climate Fund, Australia and New Zealand and a few other development partners have been generous in providing the necessary financial resources for us to be able to fortify our land territories and give us more time in terms of the impact of sea level rise. One of the key initiatives that Tuvalu has been pursuing is assuring the future sovereignty and statehood of Tuvalu. The Parliament of Tuvalu in December last year, one of the last session of the previous Parliament, actually changed the constitution of Tuvalu, which now include a provision in the constitution that recognize the continued statehood of Tuvalu into perpetuity, meaning that regardless of what happened to the land territory of Tuvalu, the waters, the maritime boundaries that Tuvalu has registered with the UN will remain intact and should be recognized by other countries. There is a deliberate campaign by Tuvalu to commit other countries to recognize the continued statehood or sovereignty of Tuvalu, regardless of the impact of climate change, in particular sea level rise. One of the recent treaty that Tuvalu entered into with the government of Australia, I know some of you might have heard of it, that provides a free substantial scheme. One is climate cooperation, in which Australia commit to, got 2 minutes, commit to support Tuvalu's efforts against the impact of climate change. Secondly, a migration pathway, and thirdly, security guarantees. I better move quickly to economic challenges. As all other Pacific Island countries, they are vulnerable to the impact of global economic shocks. Most of our food commodity, in particular fuel, are all imported, so that it adapts to the high cost of living and services in Tuvalu. One of those priorities that I showed you earlier commits the current administration to review the root causes of the high cost of living. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a narrow revenue base. The undertaking that the new administration has committed to is to try and explore other new innovative revenue bases, including some online economic opportunities. We do have a trust fund that has been around for a while. And the idea of a trust fund is to provide a safety net, to provide a buffer in terms of the national budget. The last substantive slide that I have, Tuvalu-Japan partnership. We've been having diplomatic relationship with Taiwan for the last 45 years. OFCF and JICA are the main Japanese aid agencies. And fisheries, of course, is a very important resource that contribute to almost half of the revenue generation in Tuvalu. Internet connectivity, Japan has been very kind to us by contributing about $3.5 million for a submarine cable that we are expecting to land in Tuvalu in the first quarter of next year. There is a new vessel that has been built and was launched last week here in Japan, funded by ADB, but built at the Honda shipyard. And we are expecting this vessel by the end of the year. And I also mentioned the Palm Summit, in which Tuvalu will be part of the Pacific leaders that will be engaging with Japan. Sorry, I don't have the luxury of time, but appreciate your patience.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister Teo. This concludes the keynote speech of the Prime Minister of Tuvalu. Thank you very much, sir.